your network base, and utilize that to help yourself. So a couple housekeeping items before we start here. Our next NACMA Academy session will be in the new year, January 16th, and we'll be talking about resume building. So very important topic. And so we are excited for that. The registration is open year long. You don't have to be someone that came to the first and second one to come to the third one. We just want you to join us whenever you can. And hopefully you learn something every time you are with us. So please let your friends know, other people that you're working with know about this program, because we're excited to keep growing it. Everyone's doing a good job of staying muted so far. Stay muted if you can. Towards the end, we'll have question and answer session where you guys can jump in and ask questions. But also feel free to use the chat feature the whole time. We've got a couple other people in here that'll help answer some of your questions via the chat as well. So if you have questions for the presenters, or just something that you'd like to know about this this topic in general, just throw it in the chat. And then, like I said in the beginning, if we can see your faces, that'd be great. Got like 25 people whose faces I can see, which is awesome. That's like a new record. And if you want to change your your screen name over to your social handle so we can network with you all afterwards, that would be great too. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to kick it over to Chris, and Chris is going to be kind of our MC for the night and start to introduce some of our guests with us. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. All right, guys, welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're excited to see everyone back. And for those of you here the first time, welcome. For the first part of tonight's NACMA Academy session, we're going to be doing an AD's perspective on the topic with Stephen F. Austin, Director of Athletics, Ryan Ivey, who's been gracious enough to join us this evening. So Ryan, we're going to kick it to you for just 5 to 10 minutes here. I've got a couple questions. To get us started, could you briefly kind of introduce yourself to the group and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role?
You bet. Thanks, Chris. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys tonight. And thanks to Nicole and everyone for inviting me. You're obviously scraping the bottom of the barrel when you ask me. So I appreciate the opportunity here to visit. Nonetheless, as my head football coach has said when he talks about being hired, that you don't have to be first, you just have to be last. And so here I am, I'm last with you guys tonight. So this is where we are, but excited to be with you and share a little bit. My path really kind of started when I was a football student athlete at the University of Memphis. I use that term loosely because I was a punter and a holder. And so I don't know if that counts as being an athlete or not, but was able to do that and really understand and get to understand and love college athletics, and appreciate there's 2 individuals that really kind of I saw that poured into us from a back end standpoint there at Memphis that really inspired me. And so while I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to make a difference in the lives of student athletes, and being able to jump into college athletics and work in college athletics was really, really important to me. I was able to have the opportunity to volunteer with the Memphis Grizzlies. I did an internship there with the Memphis Redbirds, and then I got my first college job at the University of South Dakota. So you got a Western Kentucky kid moving to Memphis and then going to Vermillion, South Dakota. And for those of you that have not had the pleasure of going to Vermillion, South Dakota, first, let me tell you something, you're missing out on that. That is a treasure in life that you certainly need to do. But it was certainly a challenge for me and a change for us in what we had, but had the opportunity, really enjoyed it. But then Memphis called me back, and so I went back to Memphis. Again, going back to networking, right? And part of it for me to get back to Memphis was because of our director of football operations there, and a guy that was our DFO when I played. Our women's basketball program had a director of women's basketball position open. He recommended me for that position, had those conversations. So that started me there for a couple of years. And then I went to McNeese State, where I was an associate athletics director down there for 6 years, or almost 6 years. And then I went to Texas A&M Commerce as the athletics director. Was there for 3 years, went to Austin Peay as a Division I athletics director for 3 years. And again, networking kind of led me to that point in time, being close to home from where I grew up, having known Coach Luce and connections to him with our Memphis ties, as well as Derek Vandermeer, who at the time, who I actually interviewed for a job at Central Michigan when he was there. And so we still stayed connected with that. So I was able to kind of land that job with some help. And then coming here to Stephen F. Austin. And so I've been here now, this is year 5 here at SFA. And a lot of that has to do with, again, the networking and the relationships that I've been able to build, which I think maybe that's a question we'll touch on later. So.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the next question, Ryan. So you talked about where you started and where you are now. Can you tell us all a little bit more about how you use networking and how that was important for all those kind of moves you've had throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical, right? I think when you're thinking about networking, and you've got to do it the right way. And I think for me, it was about building genuine and authentic relationships, so that when opportunities come along, that you could genuinely reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm interested in this position, or they could reach out to you and they could say, hey, I think you might need to be interested in this position. And case in point here with me at SFA, I was at Austin P. I've been there just 3 years, really enjoyed what we were doing. We were having success there. I was not looking to make a move, but this position came open. The former athletics director who was retiring, Robert Hill, I had a connection with when I was at McNeese, and we were both in the Southland Conference. He and I had developed a friendship, and he certainly was interested in me coming here and taking over for him as well. And then the search firm, right? Bob Bodine, Eastman and Bodine had the search. And so I was able to make connections with Kevin Gall and Bob along the way. And again, those relationships, because those are individuals that I trusted, right? And I think when you get into this business and you're looking at the next job or whatever that opportunity may be, you've got to have people that you trust, and you got to have people that are going to shoot you straight and certainly provide opportunities that they feel are going to be right for you. And sometimes when you're asking for those positions as well, you've got to have people that are going to tell you no as well. Sometimes we don't want to surround ourselves by people that'll tell you no. And I think that's probably the best thing that we can do, is making sure that we have people around us. So, for me here, again, networking is really what got me here, quite honestly. I told them no first 2 times they called, and third time they called, I said, well, maybe I ought to shut up and take a listen. So that's what happened.
Awesome. Ryan, what is one thing you would maybe, tell your younger self when you were just getting started in your career, like most of the people on this call? What's maybe something you would change, kind of looking back on it now after all these years?
Yeah, I think, when I first got started in this business, I had a goal and I had a dream of where I wanted to be. And there was this plan, right? Like we always have this plan that I'm going to go here for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and I'm going to go here, whatever it may be. And I think along the way, we forget or we don't truly invest in the places we are. And so I think it's important. I think going back, if I could really tell my younger self something, it's really make sure that you're developing genuine and authentic relationships with people at every stop of the way, wherever that may be, right? Making sure that you're being genuine and authentic about who you are, because you never know when that connection or that relationship is going to help you somewhere else. And that may be in this business, that may be elsewhere in this business, that may be in life in general, right? And so I think that's critically important. I think I would have been probably tell myself to be more diligent in writing notes. I know that's probably a foreign concept to all of our young folks. And I feel like the old dude, like, get off my lawn when I say this. So I'm not trying to be that guy, but I think genuine handwritten notes when you see someone that does something or that touches you in some way, right, that you think is good, I think is important, right? And it's because in college athletics, our jobs are hard. It's not, there's long hours, there's not a ton of pay, all that stuff's documented, right? And we talk about that. And so when you see someone in this profession doing something well and making a difference, I think it's important to reach out to them and say, hey, I saw what you did there and I really liked it, and thank you for doing that, right? Whatever it may be. I mean, I don't know John Cohen at all, okay, at Mississippi State, just went to Auburn, but I watched his press conference a little bit, and the passion that he had, the energy that he had in that press conference, I just sent him a note and said, hey, I appreciated your passion. I appreciated your energy, right? And those type of things, because we need encouragement in this business really quite a bit. And so I would have probably been more diligent in doing that. And then probably the last thing I would say is focus more on being present, right? I talked a little bit about that, but focus more on being present, live where you live, right? And work where you work, and immerse yourself into that. Because if you focus on those things and you do a great job, you're going to have the opportunity really for other opportunities or chances for other opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. All right. So we're going to roll straight into part 2 here, which is going to be our main topic this evening, networking and informational interviews, tips, tricks, do's and don'ts. As part of that, I want to introduce our next guest, Murray Littlepage, Assistant AD of Marketing and Fan Engagement at Temple. Murray, can you say hi to the group?
Hey, everybody. Hope you all are doing well and staying warm.
And then last but not least, we also have Ariana Henderson, who's the George and Viola Taliaferro Fellow with the Big Ten Conference. Ariana?
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Chris, for the invite. And yeah, let's get this show started.
Awesome. All right. So I've got just a couple questions prepared for our 3 guest speakers. If anyone has any questions you guys want to drop in throughout, please put them in chat. Nicole and Chris will be happy to kind of help moderate that. So question 1 for the 3 of you, can you guys talk about the importance of networking, as Ryan kind of already briefly touched on his career, and maybe 1 or 2, good examples of how, positive, strong networking has proved beneficial for each of your careers?
Would you like to go first?
Go ahead. It's hard to see. I can't see you, so go ahead. You can go first.
Yeah, absolutely. So networking is huge. Every full-time job that I've had in college athletics has been because of networking, because of relationships that I had built with people at previous stops or over the course of my somewhat short career. But every position. My first full-time job in athletics was because of somebody who was a full-time employee when I was an undergrad student and an intern. And obviously I worked closely with her, but it was somebody who, once I finished, I kept in touch with. We obviously had created a genuine relationship, and it was somebody who I could go to for anything, ask questions about, just learn from. The next job I got, literally all 3 of my references were friends with the person hiring for the job. And again, it was because and fortunately this person trusted all of these people. Obviously they had relationships, but then just my relationships with those people as well just kind of helped me obviously get that position. Same thing with my current job at Temple. Somebody who I had a relationship with sent me a text, and they were basically said, hey, the person who's hiring at Temple just reached out to me saying that you applied for a job. And again, it literally was just relationships. She was able to speak on my behalf, speak about the type of person I was at work, outside of work. And yeah, everything just kind of fell into place. So it's definitely been super important and super beneficial to me.
Networking has been very beneficial. Like Murray and Ryan has talked about, college athletics is a business of relationship building. It's all about who you know. Of course, it's about what you know once you get in a door, but to get in a door, it's all about who you know. I like a lot of, I'm a former student athlete. I ran track and field at the University of Colorado. How I got into sports was literally by networking. At the time, I didn't know I was networking, but now looking back on it, I was. I started in sports by literally just going up to my AD's office, sitting in his office and just talking to him. So by talking to your AD or whoever your boss is in athletics, they have so many connections, it's not real. Like, he knows everybody. So from talking with him, I also wanted to get into like DEI work. Like, that was my passion. So I went and networked with our former vice provost of diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus. But I think what networking and informational interviews, because that's really what I did. That's what I consider networking, especially when you start off your career. It's all about informational interviews. the hardest part is literally sending the email. Like, it's intimidating just to send the email to people in high places, like provosts and presidents and ADs of athletic departments and colleges. But once you do that, like, they want to help us. Like, they want to help young people that start in their career. They want to be able to pass down their advice and stuff they wish they did when they were just starting to us. So I think it's super beneficial. I'll try to recant a story. Last year, I was in my first full-time role. I was the diversity, equity, inclusion at my alma mater. And my boss actually gave me a task to do as many informational interviews I can do while completing my while completing my master's degree and while doing my term as the DEI associate. And in that, I created a list. And I had on there like my wish list of ADs that I wanted to talk to. And each week I would go to my AD and I would be like, hi, do you know this person? Is it okay if I can CC you on this email? Is it okay if I can drop your name just to get into the door? So like I met with Gene Smith, who is the AD of Ohio State. And that actually helped me get into my role that I'm in now, working with the Big Ten office, because he's an AD of a Big Ten school. So it's just little things like that and little nuggets like that. And just taking a whim of emailing somebody really is helpful and works.
Yeah, one tiny note building off of what Ariana said, when you guys are at the point where you're starting to apply for jobs, and we'll talk about that more at a future session next semester, but a really simple piece of advice to kind of use that network and help build your own is just let your bosses know where you're applying. You'll be shocked of who they know and where they know places. When I was coming out of school and I was applying for jobs, I would tell them every week, and then it would be, oh, I went to convention with this person. I was in a master's program with this person. We were roommates in college, which was how I ended up getting my first job at Auburn. Was my boss at Auburn was college roommates with my boss at Purdue, and that opened the door. And like you said, you have to, it's what you know and who you know, but who you know gets that door open, so you can show what it is you do in fact know. All right, moving on to question 2. Murray, we'll start with you again, just to keep the flow going. Can you talk about some do's and don'ts, or maybe the right and wrong way to go about networking? Because there is definitely a wrong way to go about networking, like I think we all know.
Yeah, that's definitely. So it's kind of funny you mentioned this, because I kind of dealt with a situation with an intern this summer who kind of went about it the wrong way. So for me, it was also kind of a learning experience, just trying to figure out how to deal with that. But I think the first thing is, and Ryan kind of touched on this, is being genuine and being authentic. I think the thing I kind of wish I had known when I was younger is just how important it is to create this genuine relationship. And it's not the type of relationship that you should only be reaching out to these people when you're looking for a job or you need something from them. These should be people that you are consistently talking to, shooting a text, just catching up. It can be shooting an email, asking for advice, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's very important. I think also being prepared, having, again, an idea of why you're reaching out to this person, kind of what you are hoping to get out of the relationship, I think is definitely important. I think something else that's crucial, and something that I definitely have gotten more comfortable at the longer I've been working in college athletics, is not being afraid to reach out to people. I think earlier on in my career, that's something that I struggled with. And I think I worried a lot about, I reached out to this person, I had one conversation, I feel like we talked about everything that I was interested in learning about. And so it was one of those ones where I don't really feel like I kind of held up my end of the bargain and followed up and, created this genuine relationship. And I probably hurt me somewhat in from a professional standpoint. One of the things as I've gotten further in my career that has been important to me is, again, making sure that it is actually a genuine relationship. And so one of the things that I did is, and this was probably right after COVID, I'm a total nerd. I have spreadsheets for everything. And so I started making a spreadsheet and I would keep track of who I spoke to, when I spoke to them, what my relationship was with them. And it literally is broken down by month. And some of these people are people who, you know, I would talk to every month. Again, it could be a 20, 30-minute call. Sometimes it would be people who I talk to every other month. But that way I was able to kind of keep track of who I was talking to. And again, it was also a great reminder of, hey, I had one conversation with X, Y, and Z person. The biggest thing I'm trying to do is create a genuine relationship and get to know this person, and hopefully be able to help them, but also again learn from this person. So it was helpful for me because I was able to kind of keep track. And you know, January talk to 5 people. I might not need to talk to all these people again in February, but once March rolls around, I can go back and look and see, you know, oh, I haven't talked to this person. Let me just check in, see how everything's going, see how basketball season's going for them, how, you know, they're prepped for spring's looking. So that's something that to me is definitely important and something that I've tried to do.
Yeah, echoing what Murray said and even what Ryan said, genuine relationships, people will know if you're just trying to talk to them to get a job. Like they will know. Like, and it won't be helpful. It will shoot you, it will backfire. Like, so really be genuine. And like Murray said, be prepared. Don't go into an informational interview and not do your research on the person you're meeting with. Like that is going to be embarrassing for you. Don't get on there and ask, oh, where did you go to school? Like that's in their bio. Like ask targeted questions. And then another thing I would say is when you're emailing them, don't be like, Ariana told me I should meet with you. Like you could say, like, I know Ariana, but I think it'll be beneficial for me to meet with you. Like, I want to meet with you. Here's the reasons why. But don't just put on, like, don't just name drop the person and be like, they told me to meet with you. Like, they're not going to want to meet with you if you just say, it's because of Ariana. You know, like, no, it's because you want to get better and you want to grow in this profession. And they're a person that's already in a space that you want to be at. Another thing that I would say is a don't do is just be your authentic self. It will always pay to be who you are and be vulnerable in those moments. Like don't be afraid to ask questions, even if it sounds stupid to you. It's not. Like if you don't know the answer and you think they know the answer, ask it, because this might be the only chance that you have to talk to somebody in that position, and it'll set you apart from everybody else because they'll know, okay, this person really wants to grow and they're asking questions that nobody else wants to ask me. Like thinking about like if you're talking to an AD and you ask them, well, how do you handle like your losing seasons? That's something you probably wouldn't want to ask someone, but at the end of the day, to be a good leader, you have to know how to lose, just like you have to know how to win. So just don't be afraid to ask tough questions.
I've got a good don't. Don't just send people a whole bunch of questions in an email and ask them to answer it. That's not networking. A lot of times when that happens to me, it's like, oh, I've got an assignment and we're supposed to network with someone. Can you please answer these questions? I'm like, no, get on the phone, get on a Zoom and put some effort into this. Like you're not going to learn anything. You're just going to look at that opportunity for your class when they're pushing networking to like take advantage of that. So that's just something, as you guys were talking, I'm trying to think of things that make me mad sometimes. I love talking to people. I'll have a conversation with anybody, but making sure that they know what they're going to ask going in is huge. And then don't just send a list of questions and say, hey, can you answer these for me? Sorry.
I think I just thought of something else while Chris was talking. To go along with that, I think something that is huge is email etiquette and how you are writing an email, what your subject line is in the email. You have one chance to make a first impression, and you know, the example that I was talking about earlier with my intern this past summer, I had people reaching out to me asking if I knew this person because of how poor their email etiquette was. So I think just being mindful of, you know, what you're putting in an email, how you're communicating with whoever you're reaching out to is huge.
And COVID has really blessed us with being able to do interviews on Zoom. Like you can literally have a meeting with someone on the other side of the country. Like before COVID, that really wasn't a thing. So like take advantage of this.
Awesome. All right. E, we're playing the reverse Uno card and coming back to you for the next question since you keep
Okay.
talking informational interviews. So last question, what is just some general advice on how to, you said earlier, sending that email can be really scary sometimes, right? Approaching people and then how to properly execute that informational interview. What are just like a couple pieces of advice you would have for folks?
Informational interviews, people love to talk about themselves. Okay. Like that's something that I've really learned in this process. Even like real interviews, like when you're going into a real interview, ask them a question about themselves. There'll always be a question, like there'll always be a section in your interview where they're like, do you have any questions for us? That's your moment. Ask them questions about themselves. They love to talk about themselves. But let me look at your question again, Chris. Sorry, I got off track a little bit. So you're asking like how to execute a good informational interview. Like I said, be prepared, read their bios and ask targeted questions. Like I think one of the biggest like mistakes people make in informational interviews is coming in with no questions and just thinking that an organic conversation is going to happen. You don't know this person. Like you're going to get nervous. You're going to freeze up. You need to write down your questions. You need to have a list. And if you don't get through all of them, that's a good sign. That means that you had like organic conversations. But I would really suggest writing down your questions because I get nervous when I'm in those interviews and I don't know what to say. And then I will also say, once you get into your careers, informational interviews don't stop when like, you shouldn't be doing informational interviews only when you're looking for a job. Like you should be doing them all the time. You can continue to learn at any place, in any moment. Like I'm in a fellowship right now. Before I got in this fellowship, I was doing informational interviews within my office and reaching out outside of my office. Now I'm in a position right now where I'm basically on an informational interview right now with the Rose Bowl Association. And that was just off of meeting someone at a media day, introducing myself and asking if I can come out and see their organization and seeing what they're about. Like it's one question that can get you so far.
All right, Murray, what advice would you have on how to kind of execute a well done informational interview?
Yeah, I agree. I think preparation is definitely critical. I think going in with a list of questions and having an idea of what it is that you're hoping to learn from this person is huge. I think something else, again, also doing your research on the person. I still do informational interviews now, and a lot of the time I try and reach out to people or ask people who, based on something about them that I feel like I can relate to, or that we might have in common, or something that we might be able to connect over. And those are typically the people I reach out to because I feel like they, again, maybe have had a similar path, whether it be their job history, schools they've worked at, positions they've held, job responsibilities they've had. So I think, again, just having a full understanding of, who this person is you're talking to, why you want to reach out to them, why you want to talk to this person. And then again, just doing your research, being prepared, going in with a list of questions and, not wasting somebody's time.
The only thing I'd add to that would be that it's maybe easier said than done, but go ahead and like ask someone, right? Like send that email. I think people in the sports industry are incredibly friendly and willing to help for the most part. All of us at one point were students looking for that first job, being scared about sending that informational interview email for the first time, right? And I think a lot of us still remember that and are happy to pay it forward and return that favor where, we'll make time. Maybe, the first 2 weeks in November, maybe not great because it's crossover and we're all extra busy right now. But anytime other than that, we're all pretty, willing to carve 30 minutes out of our schedule to answer a couple questions, help with a group project, give some, air quotes, words of wisdom, whatever they may or may not be from all of us, because we have been through it and we're happy to pay that forward. So, all right, those were all the questions we had prepared. It sounds like we've had a couple in chat. Nicole, do you have a couple questions for the group?
Yes, and I know Chris Grossi's answered a few. I think some of them would be beneficial to hear other folks answer them. And the first one I'm going to start with is from Kyle, and he asked, what is the best way to network while being at a smaller school? I'll kind of jump in first, and then I'll kind of turn it over to E and Murray to kind of, or even Chris to throw in their 2 cents. I think it's fascinating, this question, Kyle, to be completely honest with you. I started my career, I was in the Power 5 most of my career. I've been at 5 institutions. And one institution I went Notre Dame, Wake Forest, Duke. Then I went to the University of Delaware and oversaw external. And now I'm at the University of Florida. When I was at the University of Delaware, the amount of emails of folks reaching out to me, asking me for help or thoughts or chatting significantly dropped than when I was at Notre Dame, even as like an intern at Notre Dame, no idea what I was doing there. So I would recommend reach out to every level you can. Don't be scared. I love, like Chris Grossi said, I love to chat and would be happy to talk to anybody. But I do think it's super fascinating going from 3 Power 5s, mostly in the ACC, down to an FCS school, down, quote unquote, which I don't think it's down. I think I learned more in my 16 months at Delaware than I have in like my whole career, I feel. But I think it's so interesting to me, the fact of like how many of those emails drop off. And then I come to the University of Florida and they like shoot up again. So I would say my advice was kind of what Chris said. Don't let your school get in your way. Don't let your kind of title or what your job role is get in the way. But I've been there. So I just thought that that was awesome to answer. Murray, E, what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
I think at a smaller school, you have more connections to like your executive staff. So I think starting with internal and doing like informational interviews with just the executive team will be a good start. And then asking them, who should I reach out to in the industry? Like that's always a good way. Then they'll have a personal connection for you to reach out to somebody they actually know. So then you'll really get the interview once you connect with somebody they're connected to.
Yeah, I would say, and I kind of touched on it earlier, I think just kind of doing your research on people makes it easier. Again, I've been at 1 Power 5 school. Every other school I've been at has been a group of 5. But when I was interested in talking with somebody, again, I would look at what their path was. And again, it could be maybe they were in a position that I hope to be in one day, or they had a similar background, being at similar size schools. And so I think just finding something that you can kind of relate to with the people that you want to talk to, or some sort of connection that you all might share, something that you have in common, can make it significantly easier. Especially if you're at a smaller school and you want to talk to somebody who is maybe at a Power 5 school or whatnot. So I think that's something that can kind of help make things a little easier when just trying to reach out and start connecting with people.
I have two comments, one not related to both not really related to this question that you asked, Nicole, so I apologize. The first one is, when you're doing research on the person, also like understand the situation they have going on currently at their job. Like we have this thing at Penn State called the whiteout game. And if you email me to set up an informational interview the week of the whiteout game, I will not be responding, and it will probably be really far down in my inbox by the time I get into all my emails. So just understand like what that person has kind of going on at that time as much as you can, right? Like you won't know everything that they have going on, but just try to, do some stuff, do some research. Or even if like you really want to reach out and say, hey, I know you have the whiteout game this week. Best of luck. I'd love to get on the phone with you, in a couple weeks. I'd introduce yourself that way. The second thing I wanted to just talk about is how to stay connected afterwards. And I want to hear the panelists' thoughts on this, because I talked to maybe 5 or 6 young professionals or students a week, and most of them like don't put much effort in after that. Now I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm a bad informational interview, but I don't know, that might not be the case. But like send a note every month. Like I have 5 or 6 people that I just know right off the bat. They're like, hey, every month I'm going to get an email from this person. They're going to tell me what's going on with them, what they've accomplished in the last month. They'll ask questions. We'll go back and forth. We'll stay in touch, and that's how you create a genuine relationship with somebody. And so in 6 months, when a job pops up, I'm not going to remember the 30 people who I talked to 6 months ago just once. I'm going to remember the person that I talked to 6 months ago that has kept in touch with me the last couple months too. So I'm interested in the other panelists, your thoughts on what people can do to stay engaged with people that you have these informational interviews with.
I can start. I'm going to be completely honest right here and right now in this space. I don't think I've been the best at following up after my emails. I am a firm believer in sending thank you emails. If it's somebody that I really enjoy talking to, then I'll go as far as doing a handwritten note and sending it to them. But I think everybody on this call will really relate to this. I think we're in the age that we don't really communicate with people on a daily basis. We'll get on Instagram or we'll get on Snapchat and we'll look at somebody's page, we'll swipe up on their story and we'll respond. And that's how we stay connected with our friends. And I'm kind of taking the same approach in my professional life, that being adding people on LinkedIn and messaging them on LinkedIn, or seeing if they had a post and then sending them an email if I see something on LinkedIn. So really LinkedIn has kind of been my hub of staying connected to the people I've talked to. I get to see what they're doing. I get to write them a special note or a message on LinkedIn and have them respond back to me. But yeah, I definitely feel like I can do more. I can be setting up calls after calls, because that's how you keep a genuine relationship going. But yeah, LinkedIn has kind of been my way of following up with people and staying connected.
I'll say Twitter's been helpful for me, like really briefly, and more just like, again, some of you guys have seen, have been following all of us on the call, right? And just as a way to be a conversation starter. So to Chris's point, right, like everyone's heard of the whiteout, but like hypothetically if they had, you know, something different going on at soccer, basketball, or another thing that I knew was under his area, or something that Murray was doing at basketball at Temple, it can be a great way to kind of organically start that conversation to stay connected. We're like, hey, I saw you guys did this crazy promotion, or hey, I saw your guys' students storm the court when you beat Villanova the other night. You know, what was that like? Like, how crazy was that sitting at the court watching that happen? And that can be that organic touch point where, you know, even just, you know, a Twitter DM and be like, hey, like, I saw you guys beat #1 last night. That's crazy. Like, how's it been? Twice. There we go. Rush the court twice. Right. So that's a great conversation to have. So that can be a great one, right? As a way to, you know, you don't have to have anything to report or update. It's just, hey, I saw you guys did something really cool. Can you tell me about it? What was that like? Plus, it's just a great way to get inspiration. I think I get inspired from all my friends I follow on Twitter all the time, just seeing what they do at their schools.
I was just going to kind of add kind of what I touched on earlier. I have a spreadsheet, and I literally just keep up to date with, you know, who I'm talking to, when I'm talking to them, what my relationship is with them. I think the other thing, and somebody who I'm, who's a mentor of mine, who somebody who I talk to probably once a month, once every other month. He actually, and fortunately I was taking notes, but take notes when you talk to these people, take detailed notes, make sure that you go back and review the stuff that you talk about, obviously their answers to these questions that you have for them. One of the times he and I spoke, he actually asked me, he's like, are you taking notes when we talk? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, take a picture of the notes that you take and send it to me. He's like, I want to see what you got out of the conversation. And so I think, again, just going in prepared, having questions, taking good notes is super helpful and very important.
I also want to touch on networking across. I've talked a lot about networking up, but you also should be networking with your peers on this call, because they're going to be the people that's also going to be getting you jobs in the future. Like, they're going to know an opening and they're going to send it to you and be like, hey, you should take this job. Like, I was in the NCAA Emerging Leaders Seminar last year, and we started a group chat where we've literally just circulated jobs in the industry that we think that one another should apply for, and that that's opening at our institutions or at like the conference level, like I would send it to them first. And then of course it'll be posted, but it's targeted groups and it's who you know, like we said.
We'll kind of throw out another question to the group. Marie, why don't we start with you? Can you kind of go over a few sample questions to ask during an informational interview?
Sure. So I think the further in my career I've gone or gotten, I think my questions have changed a bit. A lot of the informational interviews I've done more recently have to do with leadership and being in a position where I'll have people who report to me. So a lot of the questions that I had in a lot of the informational interviews I've done more recently have just been asking, how do you manage people? What are, some important qualities in a leader? What are some leadership qualities you think are, difficult to gain? What are some characteristics you think a lot of leaders don't have? So those are just kind of some of the main ones. I think also just obviously hearing about people's past experiences and kind of how they got to where they are is definitely something. I think no matter what level I'm at within my career, whenever I have an informational interview, I think that's something that I like to start with and something that I like to learn.
Yeah, mine's is more targeted since I'm still in like the beginning stages of my career. It's more started like I talk about their journey. So I like to ask, how did you get into sport? Of course, we have their bio, but that doesn't really tell me how you got into it. Why is your passion? I like to ask the question, what is some adversity you faced and how did you overcome it? For me, that tells me a lot about somebody's leadership style. I think you can learn more from somebody learning from how they pivot and how they move from a bad situation and how they overcome it. And then my favorite question to ask, and actually Chris asked Ryan this, is what is one thing you can tell your younger self? Like what's one piece of advice if you can go back that you can change and that you wish you would have known when you were starting? I think that is like pivotal, especially for people starting off in your career so you don't make the same mistakes as they did. And a lot of them will just tell you to enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. And for me, that lets me like settle down and really be able to take in what I'm going through now and stop rushing the journey or rushing the process so I can be a leader in sports. But really, like the best job you have is the job you have, literally the role you have. So do the best at what you are doing now and you'll get to the places that you want to be in the future.
I think for everyone on this call, I'd say go ahead, Mary.
Oh, you can go first.
I would say for everyone on this call, I'd say don't be afraid of asking some really like pragmatic questions. Well, lately I've been getting a lot of like, hey, you're not hiring now at Colorado, but like, what are some qualities you look for when you're hiring? Knowing like Marie, Nicole, and myself are in stages where we're hiring young professionals, right, for those entry-level positions on our staff, and being able to tell people like, hey, like these are the qualities I look for in someone, right? And a lot of times people I think are surprised with the answers they get where it's not, this technical or that technical skill. It's like, hey, like I'm hiring for, a good attitude. I want to hear you're a hard worker. I want to see that you've tried new things and put yourself out there. So don't be afraid to ask those, not blunt, but, those questions that are very pragmatic. It's like, hey, like, what do you hire for? What do you look for when you're, scanning and looking for people? Don't be afraid to ask those questions because it is helpful to hear that for all of you guys, again, from someone that's in a potential hiring position.
One other, or I guess kind of two other things I was going to mention. Another thing I think that you can ask, and I think this is kind of more feeling out how the conversation has gone, but don't be afraid to ask if they have any other people that they would recommend you get in touch with. I think that's probably a question, the more comfortable you are with somebody, that's definitely easier to ask. Another question that I ask, and I will be very honest, I have not asked this question in a while, but I typically ask if they have any recommendations on books to read. I went through a phase after COVID where I tried to read a book per month. I didn't do it, unfortunately, but I got pretty close. But it was very beneficial. There were a lot of the questions that I had around this time had to do with leadership and stuff like that. So a lot of the books that were suggested were books that had to do with leadership, becoming a better leader, characteristics of a leader, all that kind of stuff. So I think that is something else that's definitely a good question to ask. Obviously, I understand that not everybody has a ton of time to read based on school, life, job, all that kind of stuff. But I think taking the time to read every so often and learn certain characteristics or skills is important.
So we're coming close up to an hour, so I'm going to ask one more quick question and then we can kind of wrap it up. We appreciate everyone's time, but both of you talked a lot about doing research and how important it was. So can you talk about what are the best things to include in initial email when reaching out to someone and making that first genuine connection?
Okay, I'll go. I think I don't really, in my emails, I like to keep things short and sweet. I don't think that people have a lot of time to be reading a long email. So what I put in there is more so what I hope to gain out of my informational interview. My career aspirations, if you know that, I would put that in there just because that does make you stand out a little bit more, saying what you want to gain from this informational interview. And then in the email, I would literally put, what is your availability for this week or this week? Because when you're dealing with people with a busy schedule, it's better for you to provide them like a 2-week window for them to get back to you, while not putting a lot of pressure on them for them to get done with it as soon as possible. But it's also like, hey, do you have time within these 2 weeks to meet with me? I would definitely include that in your email.
I think one, introducing yourself, saying who you are, what your position is, where you work, is definitely important. I think, again, just being upfront and maybe mentioning why you're reaching out, kind of how you decided to reach out. I think mentioning what you are hoping to get out of a possible conversation is also important. I think if you do have connections that are similar or the same connections, or somebody who knows them, I think as long as you probably mention this to the person, I don't think it hurts to kind of mention somebody's name and be like, oh, I spoke to X, Y, and Z. They suggested that I reach out to you because X, Y, and Z. I think those are kind of a couple of things that you can definitely include when reaching out to somebody. And I think stuff like that can kind of help make you stand out a little bit and get the person's attention. I also think, again, kind of what I touched on earlier, just email etiquette, not having a subject line that's like, please talk to me, or just something like that. Like, again, being strategic and making sure that you are being very to the point and making sure that they know exactly what it is that you're interested in and trying to get out of them.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate it. And on behalf of the NACMA Personal and Professional Development Committee, we just want to thank Ryan, Murray, and Ariana for taking the time out of your busy schedule tonight to be on this call. We appreciate all of you guys contributing to this amazing content, and we sincerely hope that you were able to take away a few good nuggets from this, and we'll continue to work on building out your personal network and continue to network with folks. I know networking across is so important, so I appreciate that. Don't send a ton of questions through email. Be prepared, focus on the present, handwritten notes. Just as a reminder, we are taking the month of December off, so we will resume NACMA Academy in January. Our next session will be held on Monday, January 16th, so be sure to mark that down. And we're thrilled to focus on resume building during this conversation, so please stay tuned for more information, including who our outstanding panelists will be for this important topic. We hope you have a wonderful, relaxing, and safe holiday season. Again, on behalf of both Chris's, Nick, and myself, thank you for showing up, participating, and taking part in this very important conversation. And we encourage you to reach out to Ryan, Murray, and Ariana and do follow-up questions and continue to develop the best you can be. So thank you. Have a great rest of your November. Good luck with everything, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck with exams.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you.